Good evening. Welcome back again to another live Subaru Q&A session, the only one on YouTube. So if you're new here, where have you been? This is episode 39. I've done 39 of these so far. If you're new, it's just questions and answers. So ask the questions. I'll try my very best to answer. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you for coming back again. I can see I've got a lot of people watching already or asking questions already. So yeah, fabulous. If you don't know who I am, I'm Duncan Graham. I map Subarus for a living. Do that almost 7 days a week. I could do it 7 days a week if I could keep up the energy, but yeah, I've been mapping Subarus for a long time now, sort of 19 years. Yeah, if you got a question, now is your chance. I try and get an honest answer to every single question. I don't withhold information. I don't do anything other than speak from experience or an educated guess. Obviously, I'm up in the UK. We don't have the latest VB Impreza or WRX. Not yet, anyway. They will become easier to import into the country, but Subaru gave up on us in 2017. So, yeah, boo to Subaru. Yeah, I can see a few of the guys here. We got like new members on the academy as well, sort of saying hello. Of course, yeah. Good morning from Australia. Must be super early there. Good morning. It's so weird. Just seeing where people are from watching this. So if you're watching this for the first time or you're a regular viewer, just chuck in the comments as to where you're watching it from. It's quite wild as to where people are all over the world. Right. Right, I've got a couple of questions already, so I will crack on and try and answer some of those. Right, question from Manuel Perregil. Yeah, hi Pedro, hi mate. Can you fit a Link CAN Lambda and remove the OEM O2 sensor to run in your Link G4 Plus ECU? Yes, you can. Yeah, it'd be a good idea actually on yours. Will make it a lot easier for MOT time because the Link CAN Lambda will trim it and make sure it's working perfectly, whereas the standard O2 sensor is not quite so nice. So yeah, be a good option. It's not a cheap option, but it would be worth it. I think you're coming up to the dyno soon anyway, so yeah, get it in before then, and we can get it set up and make sure everything's sort of controlling the fueling all the way through. Be a good option. Tonight I am drinking 7-Up. I love me fizzy drinks. Generally it's Orangina. And Moshiko has actually watched every single one of these. That's 39 hours of your life that you won't get back. Right, okay, another question. We got a question from Harry. Hi Harry, how you doing? Thanks for these live sessions, Duncan. Really enjoying them. That's good. Thank you very much indeed. I really enjoy doing them. Mapped your JDM Blob STI with the sports cat on. We got 338 brake horsepower with the decat. Would you expect much difference? I'd probably see around that 350, maybe 355 horsepower, but the power will come in a little bit earlier, so you get more of an increase in torque, just because the air going out through the turbo is more free flowing, and therefore will spool the turbo up a little bit earlier. Even if it's a really good sports cat, you make a good difference on that. Right. Got a question here from Steve. I can't find the first part of it, but how do you wire in a wideband sensor? It depends on what wideband sensor, what gauge. Generally, there are instructions with it, and you just plug it into the back of the gauge with sort of a power and ground. But if you're talking about wiring it into the standard ECU, it's not quite so straightforward. It depends whether you've got a gauge that's got a 0 to 1 volt output, in which case if you're wanting to put it into an O2 WRX pinout so that it replicates the standard sensor, it doesn't always translate perfectly to be the equivalent of what a standard sensor would read, so it might make it run a little bit screwy. Pinouts for O2 WRX, yes, I've got them. I've uploaded them into the academy for the guys in the academy for all the cars, basically, like 92 onwards. They're almost all in there. Some of them are missing, but so the common ones like an O2 WRX or like O4 STI, they're all in there. Right. Any more questions? Right. Okay. Is there anything one should do when tuning a car? The main safety is the most important thing, and that's safety for the engine and for you if you're driving it and tuning it at the same time. It's easier when you're not used to doing it to have someone else driving while you're tuning it. But from an engine safety point of view, deck cans, make a set of deck cans. I'll show you how in the video. Search on my channel for that. That's so you can listen to the engine to make sure it's not detonating. They're not expensive to make. It costs about in UK pounds, it costs about £30. So around wherever the part of the world is, they're not going to be that expensive. You can buy really expensive pieces of kit that will listen for detonation, and they can be up to £1,000 for those pieces of kit. Personally, I think they are not as good as the homemade ones that I make. I can hear more on those than on an expensive piece of kit. But yeah, take it slowly. Data log the hell out of it to start with, just so you understand what is happening, and then download the ROM from the ECU and see what your data that you're reading is related to in the ECU. Obviously, as part of the Academy, Mashiko, you'll be able to see some extra videos that I've done in there on building a base map and how to do that and what process to go through. It's a simple process. As long as you've got the deck cans, you've got the wideband in the exhaust, it is quite straightforward. Right, I'll come back to that one. Right, hello from England. Hello. I think you're down the road. Actually, you're in Devon, I think, from memory, because I think you've commented before. All right, Colorado. Hi, Fred. How you doing? Hi, George, and I think George is in California as well. So, hi, mate. Right. I will come back to that. Right. Petex radiator upgrade. Being advised that STI or standard STI radiator is best. But notice your Forester has upgraded radiator in one of your videos. Just wanted to check if it's true. 2013 STI. Yes, my Forester does have a upgraded radiator. I think personally they're not very good. The standard STI radiator is much better. I presume that the previous owner replaced it. I don't know why, but the standard STI radiator, I ran a standard rad on my time attack car up to 850 horsepower for pretty much the whole of its track life, and never had a problem with the radiator. The STI, or the standard radiator, is thinner than the aftermarket upgraded ones, but it doesn't do anything worse. It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot lighter, and gives you a lot more room around the cam pulleys, and for radiator hoses. And the welds in these aftermarket uprated radiators are not very good. The standard one's really good. Okay, Sunny Coast Barras. Right, you have a Link 207 ECU and a Haltech dash. Lambda is normally around 1, but 2 months ago read either 0 or 10. Okay. The Bosch LSU 4.9, I think, sensor on that. They are really not very reliable. I've had them die out straight out the box, dead out the box. I've had them last a couple of weeks. I've had them last, a few months. I know, I think it was Fred Astaire is on here. He had similar problems with the Bosch sensor dying quite quickly. I don't think the quality control on them is up to much at the moment, and there's lots of different places that are selling these sensors, and if they get bounced around, they're not particularly robust. So if it's reading 0 or 10, it's hosed. It's not working. Boom, 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 boom. MOT on Fozzy on MOT day. Struggled on emissions, fast idle and lean at idle. Found rear Lambda to be very lazy. There are so many different opinions on what the rear Lambda actually does. In my experience, it does pretty much 0. So unplug it, map it out, and you wouldn't notice any difference in the way the car runs. On some cars, and I can't remember for the life of me at the moment, there is some extra fuel correction that is made, but if the map is checked at the time that it's switched off, then it should run no problem at all. Lean at idle. I don't know about that one. Normally, if the Lambda sensor's working, then it's going to make fuel correction, so that should bring the idle, or should bring the Lambda sort of within 0.97 to 1.03 Lambda for idle for the MOT test. So unless it's topped out on one of the ranges on the fuel corrections, I think it probably needs investigating. Now it's fluctuated from normal to 4 or 5 and up to 10. Honestly, I think the sensor's screwed. Try and get a different sensor in there and see whether it's working. Is that going into the CAN Lambda system, or is that onto a separate gauge? If it's on a separate gauge, then there might be an issue with the gauge, but the CAN Lambda is just passing the information from the sensor to the ECU, so it shouldn't have any setup differences. So you should be able to just swap the sensor out and put a new one in. Ooh, good question. Right, Omni 4-bar map sensor, reliable. Lots of people have had issues with these, and I include myself in that. But it seems to be the red ones that seem to be unreliable. The black ones don't seem to be unreliable. I've had a few of the red ones go, which is annoying because the red one looks prettier. But the black ones seem to be more reliable. It might be complete bollocks on that, but it just seems to be that the red ones have failed, or the ones that have failed have all been red. Right, 2004 WRX heads versus EJ207 heads. Any difference? Do they flow better, make more power? Yeah, the cams are better, high lift cams. I think the duration's slightly longer as well, so they will flow better. I'm not sure on the actual size of the gallery, the airways, as to whether there's any actual physical difference in the actual heads. But certainly the cams are better in the STI and releases a lot more power at the top end. Plus with the AVCS you'll get the power at the bottom end because you can bring the cam advance in. It's a worthwhile improvement to put the AVCS heads on a WRX engine. Obviously you need to rewire or wire in the AVCS solenoids and also the cam sensors at the back, or the AVCS position sensors. You can buy the wiring looms in the States. I think iWire do them, and a couple of other places. The guy in the UK that used to do them has stopped doing them, so just trying to find out an alternative option as to getting those. But pinning those into the ECU plugs is quite easy, but you would need an STI ECU from that point. I can't see the point of Pepsi Max. No sugar or caffeine. It's just brown liquid, I'm afraid. You should be drinking Iron Brew up there, I would have thought, Neil. Right. What do you think about the Turbodynamics MDX 555 450 hybrid turbo? Right, the 555 is a close copy of the 321T. Market Lateral did all the development for the 321T, got a perfect 450 horsepower turbo, but had an exclusivity on the design of the inlet and the outlet, and the size of the wheels and the spec of those. So when Turbodynamics wanted to create their own version, they had to choose something that wasn't what was already badged as a 321T. The 321T was already perfect, so any variation from that makes it slightly less perfect. So in my experience of mapping these, the MDX 555 is just slightly laggier than the 321T. Makes the power, but just a bit laggier. A decan's far cheaper than a rebuild. Absolutely, yeah, way cheaper. I don't want to slag off other tuners. I never do that, but it amazes me that when I see tuners on YouTube mapping Subarus relying on the standard ECU cannot hear what your ears can hear. It's good, but ears are incredible. And it is a sound in the engine that you can hear properly here with the deck cans, and you want to avoid that when you're tuning. Relying on the ECU to listen to that is suicide, I think. But you know, they do what they do. I do what I do. Personally, I'd go for a 3071 over both of those. 3071, nice turbo. Right, I'll come back to Mashiko's question. Is this something that someone should do in order to compensate weather changes winter to summer? Within the ECU, there's temperature corrections for air intake temperature, that for boost control, for ignition timing. So if you're mapping it in the summer, then you just kind of want to make sure that it's not going, it's not adding too much ignition timing as it gets colder, and that the boost control is still under control. So it would just be a case of data logging and just trimming the weather corrections. But if you set it up in the summer and the spec isn't a million miles away from standard, then the temperature corrections that are in the ECU from factory kind of get you close. But if you're doing it yourself, certainly data log, and you will be data logging all through the year just to see what the differences are. You'll know that you'll see that it makes more boost in winter. Great. The air's heavier, which is great. It's got more moisture in it, which is great for power. So you just want to keep a track on things. But the temperatures are lower, so it will take more ignition timing. It's monitoring it, but not affecting what you've done for the summer tune. Ideally, you don't want to have a different tune that you have to put on the car for winter and summer. You want the same one, but make sure it adapts properly. Right. Looks like it's going to be a busy session. Normally these go on for an hour, and at about an hour my voice is generally dead. So I'll call it a day at an hour. The questions, get them in early, because that last 5 minutes just goes a bit mental. White dried splash spray marks all down the right hand side of engine bay between the battery and the radiator. Can't find leaks, so hasn't happened again. Do you have the factory overflow, or have you got a front mount intercooler with one of the small expansion tanks? If it's one of the small ones, that if you're using the car aggressively, the can isn't big enough, and I think at best they're probably half a litre, whereas the standard Subaru expansion tank or bottle, or whatever you call that, the white plastic container is, it generally takes about 2 litres. So if you've got the smaller one and you're driving enthusiastically, you might find that you get a bit of a splash out the top occasionally. Do I prefer classic or new age Subarus? Alright, never been in a classic, interested to hear my views. They are very different cars. An early version 1, version 2 standard Subaru Impreza is a work of art. It is absolutely beautiful, perfectly balanced, perfect power delivery, and it feels light and nimble on the road. The early ones were JDM, so they had all the lightness already. It's only when they started bringing them into the UK that they added all the extra soundproofing and the fatness and the weight and stuff. Like a version 4 R8, wicked, incredible acceleration. But I couldn't live with one as a daily driver, whereas I could live with pretty much any new age Subaru. And from a daily driver point of view now, I've got the Forester SH5, which I think is absolutely perfect, although I am changing bits, but obviously I wasn't going to modify it, and I'm not modifying it. Yeah, I think it's luck of the draw. Like I say, I bought a few LSU 4.9s, and like one was dead straight out of the box, was really annoying. The 4.2 I think is the larger plug one, or maybe it's the other way around. But yeah, some last for ages, some really don't. I think the one I'm currently using on my wideband that I use for road mapping is probably about a year old now. So, and that gets bounced around and chucked from car to car. Right, sicker. Right, but yeah, I'm sure it was Devon. Fuel tank on your GC8 is rusted, leaking ever so slightly. Yeah, it's really difficult to get them repaired. A lot of welding companies won't touch anything to do with the fuel tank. And getting good quality second-hand ones is really, really difficult. In some ways it's worth importing a dead car from Japan just for a rust-free parts bin. Radium stuff I think is superb quality. Fitted a few radium bits to customers' cars, and I've got some radium fuel rails to go on the Legacy for when I start bolting that back together, and it is amazing quality stuff. Really like it. I haven't tried their fuel cell, but I'm sure it'd be good. Recommended installing it as far forward as possible, further back due to the heavier front end of the car. Yeah, I'd probably try and fit it sort of just inside the bulkhead in the back of the car. You don't want to sit it too far forward, because it would then be difficult to create a firewall between that and where you are. Behind the firewall in the boot is an ideal place. Or trunk, as you guys over the States say. Yeah. I did a blue SG9. A pre-facelift. Well, I got a local, I say a local, a designer to design all the graphics for those t-shirts and hoodies. Just because getting good graphics of Subarus is quite difficult, and I paid a guy on Fiverr to make some graphics for me, and I think he did a great job. But pre-facelift, okay, I'll see what I can do. I'll put it on the list. It won't be pre-Christmas though. Okay, Christina. Best stock location, turbo for 500 plus wheel horsepower. Yeah, wheel horsepower and brake horsepower, it depends on what side of the pond you're on, what dyno you're on. I'm going to assume that you mean 500 brake horsepower, because American wheel horsepower and our flywheel figures are similar. They're probably more similar to than American wheel horsepower figures to our wheel horsepower figures. 500 plus, probably the nicest one I've done would either be a 3076 or an FP Black, which was very nice. Yeah, it was a good turbo in my opinion. Spooled up nicely, made good boost and held the boost. That I think on that we did 600 with methanol, so yeah, it worked well. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that, Colin. The Forester hasn't got a rear O2 sensor in it. I'll double check when I'm back in the SG9 and just see. On some of them it does have a correction factor in there, but it is a difficult one to say categorically across the board. Yeah, you can set that up in the link and just if it's CAN bus, then not a problem to set that up. Right, if you're fitting an STI ECU into WRX, you need the matching key, etc. for the STI ECU. You can do that, or you can get your key coded to the ECU, or you can use a Carberry type ROM, which kind of gets rid of the key link. So it will start basically as if there was no immobilizer there. Either way, it depends what access you've got to the software to code the keys, or open source software to put Carberry map on there to get rid of it. Did I try a Fuji 4-bar map sensor? I haven't tried one of those yet. I have used the Link 4-bar map sensor, but it's not plug and play. It is a wiring sensor, and generally if I'm going to wire a sensor in, I'd use one of the Cyvex metal barrel sensors. They are super reliable and very robust. But having the map sensor or an uprated one in the throttle body, like on the new age Subarus, is a cleaner solution. Blown Gemini, do I use Megalog Viewer? No, I do not. Some of the guys in the academy have been using that and they rave about it. I don't use it myself. I use ECU Edit, and I've been doing this for long enough that I know how to look at the logs and interpret them pretty quickly. Obviously I'm tuning on the dyno in the majority of cases as well, so I've got lots of data and lots of different tools to get me to do the job right. Bum, bum, bum. Right, okay. You run a 1.4mm head gasket on both my Scoobies. Any benefit over standard thickness regarding power? No. Generally, you put a thick head gasket if you skim the heads, or skim the block, just to give you, the compression that you were having, or sort of, in the extreme example, if the pistons are coming out the top of the block, then you want to be able to make sure that the pistons aren't hitting the cylinder heads. The 1.4s and the thicker head gaskets tend to go a lot earlier really than a thinner head gasket. So if you put a thicker head gasket on there, then it's more likely to go than a thinner one. But it depends what the engine needs for compression, what you need for clearances. Boom, boom. Right, how are we doing time-wise? Right, okay. Mapped in the winter and in summer, saw the wideband going crazy. Yeah, I don't know why that would be. Send me some logs in the Academy, Machine Gate, in Discord. Just DM me a set of data logs and I'll have a look. See if you got a before and after, a summer and a winter one. Bum, bum. Right, okay. Recently bought WRX-RA V Limited 99. Nice car, really nice car actually. Totally standard, drives and boosts absolutely fine, but when it comes to idle, it starts hunting. Yeah, it is probably lambda sensor, but it could equally be MAF sensor. Try and get a data logging OBD reader on there. It will have an OBD port. It's OBD1, but you will be able to get some OBD data. The Subaru Select Monitor tool would be the ideal, just to see what the front lambda sensor is doing. It might be that the sensor is on its way out. Yeah, might be that, or it could be the MAF sensor, but it's it's difficult to say, and I wouldn't recommend changing both of those because that's £600 gone straight away. Get a monitoring tool on it and just see what that is telling you data wise. Not modifying it. Yeah, should be. Yeah, definitely should be. What do people do with the vacuum line? I presume that's what you mean. The breather, the long Y-piece breather pipe. Generally, they keep it there and sort of make a bracket for that to fit, or zip tie it around something else, or they run separate pipes and maybe have a catch can. Unless you're talking about the later cars. No, I'm sure that's what you're talking about, the breather pipe. Yeah, it's just a pipe. So yeah, most people, if they're fitting a front mount, will fit a catch can as well, I guess. Talked about the RCM 600 turbo, didn't make the power it was claiming. It's certainly nowhere near 600. Tell you more about it. Yeah, disappointing. The 500 turbo is a nice turbo, but I don't, I could have done the runs and I wouldn't have noticed that there was a 600 rather than a 500. Right. Yeah, 50. Yeah, the 3071R. Yeah, the Fastline GT 3071 has got a larger wheel in there. So yeah, it's a very close to 500 brake turbo. Personally, I'm not a fan of the AccuSump. By the time you're getting that system to add extra oil into the already cavitating engine, I think the damage is being done. Fit a dry sump and the problem's solved. I don't know where you would plumb it into. I've never fitted one, and I would never fit one to my Subaru. I had a dry sump on the Time Attack car, and that worked absolutely perfectly. No oil problems from that point onwards. Sorry, I can't help any more on that, I'm afraid, mate. Any Cyvex news? No, not yet, Callum. Not yet. I'm still nagging them, though. I'm still nagging them. Putting in the inner wing air chamber for the airbox this weekend is missing. Taking no issue with airflow from that. No, you shouldn't notice any difference. Back in the day, sort of 18, 19 years ago, I experimented with taking out the snorkus, and you get more noise, but nothing extra happens power wise. So yeah, you're not going to notice any difference putting it back in. Yeah, you'll want the 4-bar map sensor on that. The RCM 500 is a really nice turbo. It's worth keep checking the tension or the preload on the actuator, because I've known them sort of release or relax over time. That'd be worth keep checking that once you get a few heat cycles in it. Link, great. 4-bar map sensor, probably the easiest one to set up is the Link 4-bar map sensor, because it's just a drop down menu selection. So yeah, it's not a difficult thing as long as you're getting a new sensor that you've got the information on. You can set that up pretty easily, but the Link 4-bar one is just on a drop down menu. It's easy. Right, David Mayer. When you say to turn down boost fuel and timing all the way down, then start to tune things up, do you set the entire trim to the lowest possible value across the whole map? I've done a couple of videos. They're in the academy side of things, so you have to kind of join us as a member on that, on how to build a base map. So like just going through on how to make the timing map safe to start, boost safe to start, and the fueling safe to start. I would probably recommend watching that, but you know, boost, drop the wastegate duty down to 0 to start with. Fueling, you know, make sure it's on the richer side of where you would want it, rather than on the leaner side of where you'd want it, because you know, when you're first going through the mapping process, you don't want to be looking at boost, fueling and ignition timing. You know, you want to be just kind of, to start with, looking at the fueling, making sure that, you know, you're getting that in the right sort of ballpark, and then you start adding boost, and then you start adding ignition timing. You don't want to do all three at the same time, because you know, it can end badly. But on the academy side of things, if you click on the join button below, academy member, and there's extra videos on the full process of how to go through and build a base map, is probably the, you know, I can't give a detailed enough answer in here. I haven't got enough time. I think that video was probably 45 minutes, and there's 2 of them, so yeah, it'd be worth watching those. Right, is it? In your experience, have you noticed MAF lag? No. I can't say I have. It might just be something really weird going on that. We'll have a look at it tomorrow. But I think we're going to go down the route of MAFless on yours, I believe. Right, process wets, top mount with forged atmospheric blow off valve. Have another forged recirculating one I could fit before mapping. Is it a downside to stay with the atmospheric one? It's just the noise. It's going to make absolutely 0 difference to the mapping, to the performance. It's just the noise. You could blank it off completely altogether, which is a much better noise. And you're saving the aggro of something else going wrong. So if it was my car, I'd blank it off completely, and just run it without a dump valve, and you get the real good sound effects of the air going back through the turbo, much better. And then sell both of those dump valves. Fozzy running yet? No, not quite. I'm being really patient with it, but I've done a lot of long journeys recently, and I didn't want to use it for a long journey. Right, do the miles, but I don't want to do like 600 miles on a motorway, because that's the wrong kind of running in miles, in my opinion. Right, we're 10 minutes left. Crikey, where am I on the list? Oh, okay, not a million miles. Right, okay. Right, JDM EJ205 single ABCS swapped into Impress RS. Nice. Okay, are you running standard ECU on that, David? If you are, then the AEM wideband, I believe, has got a 0 to 1 volt output, which will replicate-ish the standard narrowband data input. So that might be the way to do it. Yeah, it depends on the ECU. I think might be easier, David, to email me and just give me a lot more information about what you're trying to do and what you've done. I'll try and get back to you on that. Kind of following off the other question, can my remap with a decat cause a smell of petrol which gets worse than the heavy acceleration? It can do, but it'd be unlikely that you'll be able to smell it. More likely the car's behind. Small leak could be the top seal of the fuel tank around the fuel pump, or it could be like a slight weep on the fuel lines under the inlet manifold. That's quite a common issue on a 2001, 2002 car. Yeah, a leak would probably be my suggestion, or probably be my first guess anyway. Right, experience with ASNI 1050 injectors. The car made 500 1.6 bar. Wasn't happy with that. One cylinder running lean. Yeah, the question would be how does he know one cylinder's running lean? I'm not saying he doesn't, because I have seen it when I've been mapping a car and you're getting an air fuel ratio combined out of all four, and it's like 11 to 1, but one cylinder is detting more than the others, and you guess that cylinder is running leaner. The colour of the spark plugs will tell you whether it is or not. I haven't had issues with the ASNU 1050s to my knowledge. There were some issues with I think it was injectors on Amex 1300s, or was it 1600s, where under heat they, like, the internals expanded and restricted the flow, which is very inconvenient, to say the least. David Wills, good evening. I am well, thank you very much. Tired. Yeah. Screeching noise on boost, especially under load. Boost leak, yeah, probably. Anywhere in particular this would create this type of noise. If it was a boost leak, if you're on a MAF based ECU, i.e. standard ECU, the car will be running a lot richer, because you've measured the amount of air going into the car or into the engine, and the ECU is adding the right amount of fuel for that air. But then, if some of that air is not going into the engine, but the amount of fuel still is, then you would have a lot of soot around the exhaust, or even more soot around the exhaust than normal. So if it was under boost, it would be, making it run rich. Screeching, you can get that with an up pipe gasket. If there's just like a very slight, like not flat flange on the up pipe, it can do that. Kind of like when you hold a bit of grass in between your thumbs and blow through it, that kind of screech. Also on the inlet hose, you could get that kind of noise if there's a slight gap for a bit of air to kind of resonate through. It's the hardest one to find. If it's on boost, the smoke test is probably the best way to find it, because that's pressurizing the system with smoke, and you will see all kinds of leaks at that point. Right. Do I have any videos when I'm playing around with PC Link? It would be good to see your workflow and see how you've laid things out. No, I haven't. Or certainly not on the public side of things. A little bit on the academy, and my logger screens I've uploaded there, just so that if people wanted to use them, they can. I will be doing more videos on Link and Cyvex, and just to show people how to use these things. Have I used a RX8 oil filter? I haven't seen their analysis yet. No, I just use a standard Subaru black one. It works perfectly. What point would you recommend upgrading the drive shaft? When you're breaking stuff, that's the time to upgrade. Yeah, if you're regularly breaking the drive shafts and you can't change the way you're driving, then yeah, at that point, that's when I would do that. I've never had a problem with the Hawkeye STI drive shafts breaking though. I'd just block it off completely. Just get rid of the dump valve. You don't need it. Turbo's robust enough to cope without it. The ECU, you're not going to have the problem with the air flowing back over the MEF sensor, which can confuse a standard ECU. Aftermarket ECU with map based, it's not going to have an issue with it. Well, that's a really good place to start tomorrow then, said. We'll be on it. That's how we'll do it. Super Yoda. Right, okay, we're coming to the end of this. Just trying to see whether there's any more questions. Obviously, if I don't get to your question in time, I am going to call it a day now, because my throat is killing me. I have a really smoky car in an enclosed garage today. So if I don't answer your question on the live stream, chuck it in the comments below after the video's gone on to replay, and I will answer it at that point. Yeah, it's another table. That's it. It's just a different way of looking at it. So it's like a three-dimensional math curve rather than a two-dimensional one. It's easy. You'll be fine. Phil Jerry, is it possible to field tune a 2000 ECU? You can send the ECU off to ECU Labs over in France, and they can provide or sort of change the ECU so that you're able to map it with their software. I'm not a great fan of that piece of software, or the fact that you have to send the ECU away to France, but it's possible to do it. Otherwise it's trade only, ECU Tech or Ecutech, depending on how you pronounce it. They're your only options, or go aftermarket ECU. Right. 2.1 semi-closed deck block. I've done 640 on just a standard STI bottom end, EJ207 factory bottom end. So if it's your engine and you're happy for me to take it up there, then yeah, so be it. Obviously take every precaution to make sure it doesn't go bad, but you know, if it's a fully built, nicely built 2.1, then they are strong blocks, but everything has got a limit at some point. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, hi Joe. About perfect, except at 2000 RPM. Any tweaks I can maybe try myself? Yeah, look at the MAF readings, what it's doing, where it's doing it, and just see what the fuel corrections are at that point. If it's adding 10% of fuel, for example, then kind of blend the MAF curve up at that point, like to around 10%, just to see whether that makes any difference to it. But try and keep the MAF curve a nice smooth progression if you can. Right, okay, that's it as far as questions. I've run over a little bit, but that's fine. I will see you, hopefully a video coming out Saturday morning, if I can get the rest of the filming done, because I was filming a bit today up in Essex, so that was quite exciting for something for my Forester that is not going to be modified. And yeah, I'll see you in the live stream next week. Cheers.